In this video lesson, we're going to look at a few examples with quadratic equations and solving using the quadratic formula. So the first example, x squared plus 9x minus 11 equals 0. We are going to use the quadratic formula, so let's identify our a, b, and c values. Your a is 1, your b is 9, and your c is negative 11. And so now we can jump right to our quadratic formula. X equals negative b, so negative 9, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 9 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 11, all over twice a, which is 1. So now we do our order of operations. Start inside your grouping symbol, which is a radical. So negative 9 plus or minus 9 squared is 81. And you have negative 4 times 1 times negative 11, which is positive 44, over twice a. So 2 times 1 is 2. So we can go a little bit further. 81 plus 44 inside the radical can still be simplified. So I get x equals negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 125 over 2. Well, the square root of 125, we are going to have to simplify that radical. 125 is not a perfect square. And so to simplify the square root of 125, let's do it over to the side. 125 is going to be, what, 25 times 5. 25 is 5 times 5. So I have one pair of 5s. So I can take out 1 5, and 1 remains inside. And so I have, for this problem, x equals negative 9 plus or minus 5 square root of 5 over 2. And that is your answer. Since our square root cannot be a perfect square, it's not, you have to simplify the radical and then put it in the form, and you can't break this down anymore, so we leave it as is. Let's look at example 2. Example 2, we have negative 3x squared plus 4x minus 4 equals 0. And so we're going to identify our a, which here is negative 3, our b, which is 4, and our c, which is negative 4. And we're going to plug this directly in the quadratic formula. X equals negative b, so the negative of 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 4 squared, minus 4 times a times c, so 4 times negative 3 times negative 4, all over twice a, so twice negative 3. So I just plug it in. Do the most basic first, just plug it in. Whenever you have a negative, you're going to want to put it in parentheses and then just do order of operations. Go inside the square root first, since it's a grouping symbol, and do the order of operations there. So you get negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared is 16. Then I have negative 4 times negative 3 times negative 4. So negative 4 and negative 3 is a positive 12, times negative 4 is a negative 48, over twice negative 3, which is a negative 6. Keep on simplifying. You get x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root. 16 minus 48 is negative 32 over negative 6. So we're going to simplify the square root of negative 32. First off, I'm going to take out the negative and turn it into an I. 32 is 16 times 2. 16 is 4 times 4. And both 4's can be broken down into 2 and 2. So I have two pairs of 2. So I can take out 2 2's, and 1 remains inside. So 2 times 2 is 4. So you get 4i radical 2. And so I simplify the square root of negative 32, and I get 4i radical 2. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus 4i radical 2 over negative 6. If we take a look, all 3 terms have a common factor. They all are divisible by 2. So I can divide all of them by 2. Negative 2 plus or minus 2i radical 2 over negative 3. And that is my answer. So a little more complicated. We had to bring out the imaginary number here, but the concept is all still the same. You plug in your numbers, you simplify the radical, put it back in and just make sure it cannot be simplified, which here it could. So we divide everything, all 3 terms out of 2. We divide them all by 2 and got our answer. So let's look at one last one in this video. It is 3x squared plus 5x equals 2. Now what's different about this one is it's not equal to 0, and all the other ones were equal to 0. So when using the quadratic formula, you want to make sure to set it equal to 0 first. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Sorry, subtract 2 from both sides, and that gets me equal to 0. And then I would identify my a, which is 3, my b is 5, and my c is negative 2. And I would go right to the quadratic formula. X equals negative b, so negative 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 5 squared, minus 4ac, so a is 3, and c is negative 2. All over twice a, so 2 times 3. Order of operations inside the radical first. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root. 5 squared is 25. Negative 4 times 3 times negative 2. Negative 4 and 3 is negative 12. Times 2 is a positive 24. 2 times 3 on the bottom is 6. Keep simplifying in the radical. You get negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 49 over 6. Simplify your radical. The square root of 49 is 7. And so really, x equals negative 5 plus or minus 7 over 6. So you break this down. You get negative 5 plus 7 over 6, which is 2 over 6, which is 1/3. And you're going to get, for the next one, negative 5 minus 7 over 6, which is negative 12 over 6, which is negative 2. And so my answers are x equals negative 2 or 1/3. And so for this example, we had to learn the process that you must set it equal to 0 first before using the quadratic formula. The key is identify a, b, and c, plug them in. Do order of operations in the radical first, keep on simplifying, simplify your radical, and then perform the operations to get the answer.